Welcome to our public meeting, zoning bylaw update in person at Rosedale Hall and live streamed electronically. Our opening of our meeting, land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located, and this meeting is being held as the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. Introduction. The purpose of this meeting is for members of the public to learn more about the proposed changes to the zoning bylaw, ask questions, and/or make statements either in favor of or in opposition to the proposed changes. The town's planning consultant, Forrest Simon, from JP2G Consultants Inc., and the township's junior planner, Kirsten Cote, will provide an overview of the proposed changes. Then, any person or public body may present, any person or public body present will be given an opportunity to be heard. If you wish to speak, you will be asked to state your name and confirm if you are a ratepayer of Montague Township or are speaking on behalf of a public body. If a person or public body does not make oral or written submissions at a public meeting, or does not make written submissions to the Township of Montague before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you wish to be notified of the decision of council with respect to the zoning bylaw update, you must submit a written request to the clerk, or you must sign the attendance list provided at tonight's meeting. This list is located on the table at the front door, and you are required to provide your name, address, and contact information. This will also entitle you to be advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing. The clerk must provide notice of council's decision to all those who request copies within 15 days after the day the bylaw is passed. An appeal to the tribunal may be filed with the clerk of the Township of Montague by any party entitled to do so, not later than 20 days after the day that the notice of decision was given. The notice of appeal must set out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection accompanied by the required fee. If there's any disclosure of community interest and general nature thereof. So approval of our agenda. The suggested motion is that the agenda be adopted as presented. All in favor? That's carried. So now we will on our application. So the zoning bylaw.
Thank you very much. We've got this microphone we are going to use. My name is Forrest Simon. I'm a senior planner with JP2G Consulting, and I provide support services to Montague and have for about 4 years on and off work with this council and the previous council. Thank you very much for coming out to the public meeting tonight for the new zoning bylaw. It's really important that the work that Kirsten and I have done and that the council's been involved with gets reviewed by you guys before it becomes the law of the township. I want you to take me at my word that I want you guys to review it, to critique it, and give us your suggestions and possible improvements to it. It's only through your involvement that it becomes a stronger document and it starts reflecting the very nature of the township. A bit of background about why we're here and why we are updating the zoning bylaw, I think is important. The township updated their official plan, the Montague Township official plan, 2 years ago. The township's required to update their official plan every 5 years. And so the township was following through on its requirement under the Planning Act to update its official plan. And two things happened during that update. One is that you're required to make sure that your official plan is meeting provincial policy requirements. And there was a new update to provincial policies in 2020. The other thing is it's an opportunity for the township to make sure that the official plan reflects the tone that they want, or the priorities that they want. And when we did that and worked with council, one of the priorities was to expand the opportunities to invest, to make planning more supportive of new investment and growth in the community, and less of an obstacle. And I think in many ways we were able to achieve those more supportive policies in the official plan. Once a township updates its official plan, the Planning Act requires that you update your zoning bylaw within 2 years. To make sure that both the official plan, which is policy, and the zoning bylaw, which is regulatory, more regulatory, site-specific in nature, are in sync and are saying the same thing. So we embarked on the exercise of updating the zoning bylaw. And the direction that we got from council was to, make it at the same tone as the official plan, where we can, and to make it as good and as clear language of the document as possible. And so, Kirsten and I have been working for probably the last 8 months to achieve that. And the document before you tonight is that document. And again, we want your comments. Zoning bylaw has 3 main sections. All of the sections have been updated and changed in one way or another. The first section deals with definitions, which when you look up what is retail, there is a definition for retail. What is a single detached dwelling? There is a definition for that. What is an additional residential unit? There's definitions for that. Agriculture. All those terms that are used throughout the document are defined, and we've really worked hard at updating those definitions and clarifying them and taking out ambiguous wording that is confusing, and trying to make it more clear language. The next section of the bylaw is general provisions, and that's where things like home occupations are spoken about, bed and breakfast, setbacks for pits and quarries or wetlands or water. That's spoken in the general provisions that apply to all the zones. And then the third section are the actual zones themselves, the rural zone, the residential zone, the environmental protection zone, and what's permitted in those various zones. As we go forward tonight, I want you to keep in mind that we would really like your comments by the 24th of this month. That will allow us to have them considered for council at a future council meeting. We're hoping the 7th of May, we can bring this back for council with a report, with all the comments that have been provided, and making suggestions on how we can improve the document based on those comments that we received. And hopefully council will consider passing the bylaw later this spring. Some areas that I'd like to highlight that have been improved, at least we think they've been improved, is the opportunity to have multiple residential units on one property, additional residential units to help provide affordable rental housing. We now have suggesting that you can have up to 3 units on a property in the rural area. And hopefully that's going to give people an opportunity to invest in their property and also provide additional rental accommodation. It's also like when I was a kid, we were told when we were young to buy a duplex, live in the bottom one, rent the upper floor. That's how you get into the housing market as a young person. The young people are having a heck of a challenge getting into the housing market these days, and we're hoping that these additional residential units will be like the duplex option when I was a kid a million years ago. Not quite. We've also tried to provide some additional opportunities for people to have livestock on small holdings within the township. We've had some really positive, constructive assessments of that already. We've received a number of comments already. How we could improve that and make it more flexible and accommodating. And again, those are the types of comments that we really want to see, how to make this better. We did have an open house this afternoon that was more informal environment. And we had a bunch of comments. We had a very lively, fun afternoon, at least fun for the planner. We had fun. The other thing that I want you to appreciate is that this is a best effort. We're trying to make a good document. These are big, important documents. And I would be the first one to admit we don't get it always right 100% of the time. And so what we've talked to council about, what we want to suggest going forward is that you do a review of this document in a year's time and bring in a housekeeping amendment that would tweak any errors or oversights or things that we didn't quite get right this time around. So it's not a etched in stone document. It's a living, breathing document, and we think that there should be some sort of housekeeping review, at least after the first year of being in place. The final thing that I want to, there's two other things I wanted to talk about. One is that we've made an effort to improve the quality of the mapping that's tied to the zoning bylaw. There's two laminated copies over there. You can take a look at the map, find your property, and see how it's zoned. We're not changing anybody's zone on their property through this process. But the mapping is much more accurate than it was historically. And I think that increased accuracy helps people understand their properties and what can and can't happen on their properties, and also potentially eliminate the need for costly studies if you wanted to make certain things in your property happen. That's I think an important point. One other thing that I just wanted to highlight, the reason I wanted to highlight it was brought up and we talked a lot about it this afternoon, was the fact that we're recommending that the minimum size of dwellings that's required in most of the zones now be eliminated. And this will allow for things like tiny homes and more modest housing, which I think is part of something that we've lost as a society. You know, there's a lot of houses out there that are 20 by 24 or wartime houses that are much more modest. Every house doesn't have to have an attached garage, but it seems that that's all that's being built. And I think that one of the things council can do to be more supportive of modest housing is to eliminate the minimum size of housing and just leave it up to the building code to determine what is a minimum. And there are specific requirements under the building code about the better living space. You put all that together and you end up at the very bottom of somewhere around 350 square feet. Most are looking at about 400 square feet, which is what World War I wartime house was 425 square feet. And World War II wartime house was around 600. But I think planning, getting out of the way for creative ideas and how we can address summer housing is a goal that we try to advance. I think, Reed, that's all the rhetoric I'm going to do for now, but I would encourage people to provide your comments, follow them up in writing, and if there's any questions, I can answer as we go on.
So I think we'll hold on to one moment, yeah? So if somebody has a comment, Grace has a mic. Let's take their name and address.
Yeah, at least your name and whether you're a resident of Washington Township.
And then ask your question. Don't be shy.
There's no right.
Ladies first.
Please, I think you might have guessed, I said my name.
Hi. I'm Mr. Crabtree. I'm at 284 Road, and I'm a resident of Mountain Township since 2015. I first want to say I appreciate all the work that you guys have done on changing and amending bylaws. I think there's a lot of really positive changes that are coming from it. I think the tiny home aspect, a lot of people have lost that, and I think that's a really important piece too, because a lot of people who want to build tiny homes and be able to country living at its best, right, which it is in my view, and be able to maybe start their own little homestead. My main concern that I submitted as a comment was on the aspect of bylaw 4.3. So the agricultural use restrictions for hobby farms in lots of agricultural A or rural RU zones. So the amendment that I see here is that zones that are under 4 hectares, which is 10 acres, in a size, the maximum number of livestock units permitted shall be limited to 1 livestock unit per 0 to 8 hectares or 2 hectares of land. So, and then there's the matrix that goes with that. A little background, I'm on a little over the 7 acres of property, so in a quarter acre. And with this new change, it basically the number of animals that I have on my property right now, I need in excess to what the proposed change is. So my concern with that would be also to other individuals with properties that are under 10 acres that are also in excess of that, and individuals who have properties that have severed that are over 5 acres, which under the bylaw currently they need a minimum of 5 acres in order to have livestock on the property. So let's say you sever lots of 6, 7 acres and you're wanting to sell them to potential buyers that want to build a homestead, a tiny home, work the land and have animals on their property, that it really restricts their ability to be able to maybe use the land at the fullest potential that they could. For example, we use land, we have more than enough land than the animals that we have, and we follow all the guidelines, the proper code of care for livestock and manure management, and we get on just fine under 10 acres. So my proposal for that was to revisit the look of that specific amendment and to maybe revise it to reflect the original 5 acres. And that would still allow individuals who have under 5 acres of property to still be able to have livestock within the metric. But individuals with over 5 acres would be then able to not fall under that metric. And the other piece of that as well is the how it would impact your value of your property. So if you're looking to sell the property and you already severed it within the previous bylaws where it's 5 acres to be able to have livestock, but under 10, now if this was passed, it could drastically reduce the value of the property. So I did submit the comments, it's all in writing.
First off, thank you. That's exactly the type of peak we're looking for. The intent was to make it easier for people on small rural properties to have a couple of chickens, or as my daughter always wanted, to have a fainting goat or a pot-bellied pig, something like that. And the intent was to make it easier. Your perspective, I think, is so valuable, and you submitted comments already, which we really appreciated. We've talked about it, we've talked about ideas, and thank you. That's all I can say. And I think there will be changes that we're going to probably recommend to council, very consistent with your suggestions. That is making this better and not having a negative impact, which wasn't our intent, and really appreciate that. That was very strong. Thank you. Well, it looks like we'll be making one change.
I think that's actually the questions are almost all the same.
Yeah, they're all the same. I mean, when I was reading it, and I agree with Crystal. I mean, leave it at 5. We almost have, we have 9.5 acres.
Sorry, I'm George Johnston from 250, I probably look at this. From 258 Brown Road, yes, I pay my taxes. Okay, so going back, I agree with Crystal leaving it at 5 acres. I mean, one of the reasons we came up here is that we have bought 9.36 acres, I think it says. And we're fine with what you go with as far as animals. We're not over. You know, but I mean, for resale, maybe somebody else wants to do something different from when we can't, but we want to sell, and that limits them to, because you're probably, hopefully, a grandfather people. The next owner is not going to have that limitation. So I'm in full agreement with this. Leave it at 5. No, sure. You want to be more solid?
No, just because I want to make a point, so like, for instance, I already did. So to your point, like your barn is set up where you could, like you have a huge barn on your property. So your barn is set up where you could, and a huge pasture as well. So hypothetically, if you were to sell your property, you could have a lot more livestock on your property, easily manageable under the guidelines, but would still be not necessarily within the matrix had this passed because you're under 10 acres.
We're not exempt.
So, no.
The one point that I wanted to clarify, and it doesn't just mean on agriculture. If there is any change to a zoning bylaw, like it's being proposed tonight, and a property that legally operates and exists under today's rules, and the new rules put you on the other side of the line, right, of non-complying, you are automatically having a grandfather and deemed to be legal non-complying. And it is quite often when you have a new zoning bylaw, particularly implementing a new official plan rule, that you create legal non-conforming uses. And they are grandfathered, and they get to continue to exist in perpetuity. And they have certain rights to expand and enlarge. And that's all set out in the planning act, and it's not specific to you, but the law of the land of the province of Ontario. And people need to be reassured about that. But if there's an opportunity to minimize the amount of legal non-complying properties properties that get created through a new bylaw, we're almost planning to do. Right,
It's just looking
and I think, the suggestions are spot on, and I think we're in general agreement.
And it's fine for me, grandfather, but what about somebody else that wants to do more than what we do?
Yeah, no,
I mean, we bought our place to retire and probably, you know, we're not looking to get tons of cattle, lots of horses and, but, you know, it's a hobby to us. And we want to be able to say to the next owner, it's a hobby, you know, it's a hobby farm, you know, and you were allowed over the 5 acres to have more.
yeah, understood. And there is a lot of provincial legislation with respect to things like nutrient management planning and environmental park plans that stop somebody with 500 head of cattle coming out of or the experience I had in southwestern Ontario was 10,000 hogs on a 5-acre property. Right? And that, it did happen in the late 80s and early 90s in Huron County and Bruce County, where these vertically integrated ag corps were picking up small acreage, putting barn wall to wall, and then as the hogs got different grades, would get moved from one barn to another barn. And that's when nutrient management planning came in sort of the mid-90s, late 90s as a going concern. And so we certainly have the tools at the provincial level to minimize that type of thing happening. And so I'm not too concerned about that so much. And again, great suggestions, great insight. Thank you.
And I appreciate that you're saying you'll take a look at it, because as much as grandfathering is an option, it's a lot of extra work for administrative side. And also, I know from my experience before buying Montague, we were looking at a property in Kempville that was on 3.5 acres, which was grandfathered, but no longer under the new bylaws that they had. And the concern was moving there, if we got a complaint with horses, we would no longer be under the bylaw, and the grandfather would cover us. That was the last point.
Now I can go to Daryl.
So the big concern is, and the management plan, it's great in numbers and in theory, but when it doesn't take much, if somebody has 5 acres, that's 2 horses. So just to give a kind of understanding on how the new system works, it would very much minimize what a 5-acre lot actually means. So that's why this was.
In the new plan.
In the new plan. So that was the concern with reading through the bylaws and understanding them and going through the matrix and saying, okay, what does that mean for first, you know, if you're born chickens, you could go chicken crazy. But as far as, you know, if you had a larger animal, it definitely changes that number. It also has a random number for pigs, but it's putting all swine under the same header, it puts pigs as pig, not pigs as a populated pig. Or it can treat a 500-pound sow the same as a 100-pound or 80-pound poplar. So that was the concern with the way the matrix is currently written, and the fact that it would drive down property values of anything 5 acres under 10. Because for resale value, you could have values that would plummet depending on what your property was set up as or used for. So is that correctly worded?
Yeah.
Something that was
So right now, you can't have livestock on less than 5 acres, right? So the idea was to not make non-conforming. We've got that clear. I think one of the easiest solutions is to take the 10 acres down to the 5 acres and call it a day, and what we're doing is providing new opportunity for the properties under 5 acres that they don't have today.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
And,
It's not a big rewrite.
then, well,
We
we
can
can
do that in 15, 20 minutes.
a lot quicker than that. And, but that's the type of constructive ideas that make this document stronger, right? And that's the purpose of your fresh set of eyes on this and your unique situations and the what ifs. And our goal is to make the document stronger, right? And that's why I really like this stuff.
Anybody that has 5 acres and can't keep them, that's a lot of grass to cut. That makes quite a mess, does it not? They don't have something on their lookout to their four.
It is a lot of crap,
That's where you get junk,
or
that's where you get junk.
trees, but it's also when people move out to the country, and it's a new experience, there is an expectation that they could have a few chickens, or a couple of pigs, and that they start homesteading and living off the land, being more sustainable, and dealing with their own personal food security, and dealing with the cost of food, and growing vegetables. And speaking from experience, having 10 tubing zucchini plants, right? But, and, you know, I've had almost 2 acres under cultivation for crops and growing food. I don't anymore because I've been there and done that, and I don't need to do it anymore. But that's things that people want to do. And I don't think planning should be in the way of realizing that dream or vision for your own property. And the way the bylaw was set up is that it was causing a barrier and making people do technically illegal things just to realize that vision. And that's not appropriate, and that's not what planning is meant to be, and it's not what zoning is meant to be. And it's been a theme that I've picked up from this council to make rural life easier, less rules, more supportive of investment, and let people live their lives. And that's really what the sort of the theme that came through the official plan, and the theme that we picked up on trying to realize with this bylaw. And as we've seen tonight, fresh set of eyes can show us how we can do it better. And so, if you don't have comments, or if you don't want to comment, if you do go home and you do take the opportunity to look at the bylaw online, and you see something, let us know, right? That again makes it stronger, and that's what we want to see.
Any other comments?
What was that date again?
The 24th of April, right? So it's a little over 2 weeks away.
Hi there. Sorry to be late. I probably missed some of the exchange earlier, but I had some real basic questions.
Could you be able to state your name for me, please?
Sure, my name is Jack Cole.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Same here, and I have a property on the road. I've been going for 50 years. Just a couple of questions. Who and what is the driving force behind the zoning bylaw? And were the people of the township consultant on it? Did they actually ask them? Is it something that's been given to them, or use the word maybe forced upon them? Or was it something that was actually asked for or actually? I ask because I'm not too sure if having more density is what everybody would want. And on the other hand, it does make your property more valuable. That's a concern of yours or a wish of yours. If you just trying to find a way, I mean, sort of, why it's being done, what's the expectation from the people who want to be Christians?
That's a very good question. There's two planning documents that the Planning Act says municipalities are to establish. One is an official plan, which is sort of the rules of how you create lots, and I refer to it as a policy document. It's sort of a governing set of rules on how development is to take place within a township. The other document is the zoning bylaw, which is more regulatory in nature and gets down to these are the permitted uses on these properties. This is commercial property, this is industrial property, this is residential, this is environmental. And the Planning Act says that you need to have those two documents. And the township has had an official plan going back, I believe, into the early 90s is when there was the first official plan. And the zoning bylaw is a companion document. And the province says in the Planning Act that if you have an official plan and you update the official plan, which we did 2 years ago, that you are required to update your zoning bylaw within 2 years. And so this project is in response to the prescribed requirements to update our zoning bylaw to meet the new official plan. And that is a Planning Act requirement. And council is trying to be on the good side of law. Nobody wants to build a planning jail. And that's what we're doing here. There is a lot more consultation with the community on official plans than there are on zoning bylaws. Zoning bylaws are quite technical in nature. But it's the tone of the official plan and the policies where there's typically more engagement. And I can attest to the fact that there was over and above consultation with the community when they did the official plan. I think there was a notice that went into every mailbox in the township that we were doing an update and to get involved. And we created an online portal for people to be engaged and provide their comments. And we had multiple public meetings and multiple open houses communicating with the community about the vision that they wanted to see. And council provided a lot of direction in terms of tone of making it more supportive of new investment into the community. I think with this zoning bylaw, the fact that this public meeting was given to every single taxpayer in the municipality is again extremely unique. I don't know of another municipality that has made that type of effort to say, we're doing this change, we want your opinion, and that's why you guys are here tonight. That's how you found out through that process. Every single taxpayer, again, well above and beyond what most municipalities I work with do. The reality of this zoning bylaw is we have a zoning bylaw. We've had a zoning bylaw in place for over 2 decades. The current zoning bylaw was passed in 2015. So it's coming up to 10 years old. It needs to be looked at. Most planning documents that get to be 10 years old are not sort of keeping up with legislation and opportunities. The one thing that I want you to keep in mind with zoning bylaws is that they're meant to identify options for people and things that are possible on their property. Not everybody has to have 3 units on your property. But if you want to, and you want to have 1 unit on your property, or you want to have the 2 units, this is an option that says this is how you can do it, and you don't need to go through extensive approvals to get that done. And that helps with providing affordable housing. But it's a set of options that are available to people as opposed to prescribed requirements that you have to do this. I don't know if that answered your question in a roundabout sort of way, but the consultation, again, there's been notice to every taxpayer in the municipality. I typically find that it's easier to comment on a draft document than to provide visionary on a blank piece of paper. Right, so it's something to work from, it's something to think about. If there's other ideas and other suggestions, that's what this is all about.
Can I go again? Yeah, the question is very simple, is why are we doing this? What is the benefit and what are the benefits? It's not, it's just a quick detail.
Every municipality should be managing the growth and development in their community. This is the tool that you manage growth and development and change within your community. Establishes the set of rules and regulations to manage growth and development and change in your municipality. That's why we're doing it. We don't have zoning, we don't have official plans. There are no rules to regulate growth and development and change within the community. And within the province of Ontario, municipalities are told to establish official plans and zoning bylaws to regulate growth and development. That's why we're doing it.
And the benefits and the downsides, what are they?
The benefit is that there is a clear set of rules and regulations that everybody needs to follow in terms of growth and development. There's some predictability in terms of what can and can't happen within the rural area. There's some predictability in terms of minimum environmental standards for protecting natural features that are important to all of the community. And I think that it's having a knowledge of what can and can't happen that allows for stability in terms of market value of property and people's ability to invest in property, knowing what can and can't happen on their property and also neighboring properties.
Any other questions? Turn to council if there's no further. Okay, any questions, comments from council?
Thank you all for coming out.
I would have thought there'd be a lot. That advertising rather than yin yang, but it's still, it's still.
That means they're not.
I've said before, that you can even look at that as more confidence that we're getting it right, which is partly the case, but it's more the reality of the world I live in, that people don't get excited about planning until it's affecting them on that day.
Then it's too late.
It is, but I think that this council needs to be commended for making that extra effort and extra investment of money and time to let everybody know this is going on. And I want you to know I deal with at least 16 municipalities through Eastern Ontario, and nobody has this level of outreach. And you should be thankful that you're in a community that makes that. And it's something I'm very proud of. And I'm working with. That was right. Yeah, but long time ago, we did, in my days when I was in Bruce County, we did have a notice, that had sex come out of the public, right? And never went by, never went in the paper, but we did have it up on our wall in the back lunchroom, with, you know, how to get people engaged and how to plan it.
Did it work?
It just stayed in the lunchroom. Never did that, no.
The one positive thing we were talking about a lot of council meetings is this council and this communities, there's always possibility of change. So even though this is a written document, as you said, because council is not, I'm gonna say stubborn, pig-headed, if there's something that we can change, you're talking about the free housing rule. The free housing rule, if you have, when we were talking about it, if you had a 1.5 driveway, and you could put a fourth house and everything would be safe, possible, it doesn't mean it's not, if this is just a guideline, it's more of a blueprint, it doesn't mean you can't change it. As long as, you know, you have an open-minded council and open-minded staff, there is possibility for change. This is just something to follow, and there is possible change. Is that
I've always said that planning should not get in the way of a good idea. And I think I picked that up partly from the deputy, that if you've got a good idea and it makes sense and it can generally fit within the rules, then let's find a way to make it happen. Right? And that's that idea of supporting investment in the community. Right? We're not going to support investment that causes environmental problems or degradation or decreases the value of neighboring properties. But if it's a good idea, let's talk about it.
I just wanted to make comment, and Crystal, she's already said, that she had submitted comments, but we did have 10 submissions of comments to the township as part of this process. Some from individuals and some from agencies that are required to be circulated, pursuant to the rules or the zoning bylaw amendment. So we did receive comments from Crystal Crabtree, Enbridge Gas, Brett Rickard, Bell Canada, Jack Cole, Sonia Kovacic, I hope I said that correctly, RBCA, Amanda Fisher, and Caroline LaFave. Those comments will be part of the report that goes to council on May the 2nd, with a listing of all of those comments. So I'm not going to read them out this evening, but I just wanted to make note that those are the people or the entities that have submitted comments as part of this process. It was a pleasure to receive them and to review them, and there have been some very positive comments submitted. So thank you for anyone who did submit comments.
Okay.
You go first off. I'd just like to make a comment, thank council for doing this, because I've been on the minor variance committee, and this would eliminate the cost of some people getting minor variances to do things on their property. With these new rules, it saves them a lot of money. So I thank council for going ahead and proceeding with this.
Just a quick question in regards to the comments that have already been submitted by other individuals. You said they'd be going to council for the 2nd of May. Will they be on the system as public information prior to the 24th of April, so the different individuals have a similar idea as to what they may like and may not like about the review, that if they come together instead of submitting the same question again by other individuals?
That certainly is possible. I typically like to not put public comments online prior to being assessed and reviewed. If council wishes them to be online, we can certainly do that. I often, in my reports, redact email and, mailing addresses and just have the name of the person. And it's hard to do when they all go online. It's easier to do in a report. Typically, we like to sort of get the comments, keep the comments, and encourage others to provide comments. And if we get 2 or 3 comments on sort of the same idea, it adds weight. But I've always accepted one comment, and the person has taken the time and the effort to give that one comment weight. But I think we would like to keep them, at least that's my suggestion. If council wants them to be online, we can certainly do that. But typically I shy away from that until we have them assessed.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just curious.
Sure, yeah, I was gonna say, there's a couple of things, I guess I like the free cookies idea. It reminds me of high school lectures where you used to say like, free cookies, now that I have your attention, vote for me, right? So I remember that was one time. I think I really like, what Forbes said, and maybe we can actually say those things about how, we really like to hear from the community, like to put in as much information as possible. Like, a big thing with the township over the last few years as well is trying to do everything we can with communication. That's why you see we have social media, we updated our website. You're seeing more information in our newsletters to people and the tax bills and everything else to try to get as much communication out there. So it's also nice to hear that Forbes is noticing that, and he goes around to other municipalities that the effort is out there, and it's great that he's communicating that to residents too as well. Some of those concerns that obviously brought up, and the one that was brought up, especially about hobby farms and the size of it. I think that's great that that was brought up, because this also was brought up during our council talk too as well. And if you look at my notes, I have like big question marks on it too as well, and the notes of it too as well. We discussed that feedback too as well during that process too as well. And council also had the opportunity to submit a lot of their sort of inquiries too as well, with all kinds of highlights, and they'll attest to that sort of information that we got back to as well. So I like to hear sort of some of those comments back where, sometimes when it goes in my head too as well, it's nice to hear from the community too as well, with people like, in similar situations too as well, where something makes a little bit more sense. So those are great things to hear. It was nice that we also had that meeting too as well, the board alluded to a little earlier, that had some people come in and ask some questions too as well. And also, I think maybe we came in a little bit, want to say that the document was well written. There's not a lot of crazy things, and I think it makes a lot more sense. And another part too as well is it does make it, as we work through some of those extra restrictions we don't want to put in for people, it has made it a lot easier for people to do things while still conforming and not ruining your neighbor's life too as well. Because I think that's an important part of the zoning thing. And I think you brought it up, and one of the things that pops in my head is if we didn't have zoning rules, that's great that you want to do what you want to do, but we also want to make sure that we're respecting all of the neighbors and everybody else around us. And I think that's very important. And in a municipality, I think the biggest thing that makes us great is the respect that we have for our neighbors. That's a big portion of it too as well. So those are my comments, and I wish I could call this as well. But actually, love talking about something that's much sports, but and I hope that there's more comments that come through, or more comments that you can talk to your neighbors, people home, if they want to put a comment, and we're listening to it as well. So yeah, so thank you for that.
And I did want to remind everyone, if you haven't already, to please sign the attendance sheet at the front door, so that you can be notified of any updates or decisions of council with respect to the zoning bylaw.
So going along with Jeff with reference to being open communication, the other thing that this council is very much enforcing is the openness and transparency, so that the residents of Montague are aware of what we are doing. We're having public meetings, we're putting as much information out to the residents well in advance so that everybody has an opportunity for feedback. We're very open, we're very transparent, and communication is huge. So there's nothing else. Okay, so back to our suggested motion, though, we didn't have a current secretary, so I may not be one of our first time around, so I just got his hand up, but I didn't get the second.
There's only so many to choose from.
So now, a reminder, your written submissions in by April 24th, is there a specific time?
Just 24.
24th, close of the day, by close of the day, 4:30. So for adjournment, suggested motion is that the public meeting adjourn at, I don't know time.
67.
6:57, yeah. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.